as usual, you might get picked on. All right. Well, I'm just going to kind of jump in. I actually have a lot of information that I want to try to cover tonight, but I also really want to be mindful of giving people time for questions. Most of you, if not all of you, actually have already been through the presentation at least once that I gave on this in in your residency last summer, or for some of you the summer before that as well. But there are some changes that have been made, and that is one of the main reasons that I wanted to make sure to have this meeting, because some of the protocols that we have started to initiate since the meeting that we had last summer at residency have changed, and they're going to impact students fairly significantly. So it's important that I share those with you, and that from this point forward, everybody be very aware of what is going on with all of that. So I'm just going to pop up my PowerPoint here. Let's go to slideshow. Start. Okay. Okay, so I have this very long PowerPoint that we're not going to get all the way through, because much of this you already know, and this is not really a totally true intro. So I'm not going to go into what fieldwork is, what the eligibility is. The one thing that I do want to say here, and this is actually kind of funny, I was my role at the at the Chicago school is dual. I am full-time faculty, but I am also what is known as this very strange term called the Director of Applied Professional Practice. Now, what that means is I'm the person who oversees all of the clinical training. So anybody in the program who was asked right now, I'm sure, who goes, well, who's responsible for, field work and all of that? Everybody would know it was me. And hopefully most people would have at least semi-positive things to say about their interactions with me. Well, there was this massive survey that 100% of our students apparently took, who said that the role of applied professional practice was at a 3% competency rate. And we decided, hopefully, that that's because nobody knew that that's what this term was, and that's what my position was. Because otherwise, I need to be fired, because I'm definitely not doing my job. So know that I am the Director of Applied Professional Practice, and you're going to start to hear that term a little bit more, just so that, hopefully next year maybe I'll be up at a 6 or something glorious like that. So, but the term applied professional practice really encompasses the reason that it's called professional practice is counseling and clinical work is professional practice, and being applied, obviously we're applying it in the field, and so that's sort of where that term comes from. So I oversee all of those experiences, and that's all I'm going to say about this slide. We've already gone through this, but if you want to know, this PowerPoint will be posted as well. These are what you need to have in order to be eligible to get into fieldwork, and your fieldwork generally happens the last year of your program, just so you know that. You've got to have the right GPA, 3.0 or above, good academic standing, approval of the counselor ed faculty, successful completion of residency 1, and usually also residency 2, although there have been instances where there's been concurrent enrollment with that, and then the completion of the prerequisites. All of the fieldwork courses are 14-week courses. I'm not going to go into this. This is covered extensively at residency and is available all over the place. So I'm actually going to skip ahead to the piece that is the most, this is the biggest change that has been happening since last time we talked. So there's 2 prongs to this change. The first change is that we are in the midst right now of getting approval for and starting to beta test a completely new clinical training management system. With this management system is going to include how students put sites in. It's going to reach out into how you're doing your applications. It's going to It's going to change how students are filling out time logs. It's going to fill out how students are doing assessments, like the assessments that you're doing in your classes. For those of you who went through Residency 1, you remember that you had to do the DISCA, and that was you had to go into TK20 and you had to do it all in there. This is going to transform that so it's a much more user-friendly process. It's something we're really excited about. However, for your group, everybody who is currently on this call, at least last time I looked, there's a very real possibility that you're going to literally be straddling the line of us implementing this process. So you may be asked to do several things twice, which I realize is not ideal. And because we are beta testing this for the entire TC, we're beta testing it for the Chicago school. So part of my job as the I would love have you all chorus director of applied professional practice, is to gather sort of data to be able to present to the school as a whole about how two different systems work. So you get to share in that love with me. It's very exciting, but I just wanted, that was my like caveat, my please note there in the beginning. So just know that as things do change, I will be having probably more of these meetings, and I will certainly keep you up to speed on what that looks like. So let's talk about site development, because that's the one thing that I said like before, besides just the fact that we're completely changing our management system. In light of that, we are no longer using this system that we used previously, which is called TK20, which some of you had gotten some instructions perhaps to do something in there. You can now ignore all of that because we have pulled out of it completely. We don't use it anymore. So as you're looking at sites, and many of you have already done this, and a lot of you, or at least some of you I know, had actually already submitted some sites to the SurveyMonkey. Well, we're also not using SurveyMonkey anymore. This process has completely replaced that, all right? So, but as always, you need to think about your own professional and counseling interests, what your goals are, who you want to work with, and all of that. Also, very, very, very important. Let me say that again. Very, very, very important. Everybody, at least a year out from fieldwork, needs to think about your life and how you are going to manage to get the hours that you need when you are in internships, particularly, and how you're going to make that work with your life. Chances are very good something is going to have to change if you currently work a 9-to-5 job. There is almost no way that you can accomplish the hours that you need to get in field work and pull off a schedule where you are never available when clients are. And unfortunately, the reality is that there are very few sites that have enough evening hours and or weekend hours to accomplish that. So as you begin your own site development and your own this whole process for yourself, everybody needs to really be forward thinking about that, because now that we're a year in and I've got students who are in internship, I have students who are at risk of having to not complete classes because they aren't able to get enough hours when they, I don't know, magically thought that, well, I'm just going to manufacture enough hours from 6 to 9, 2 nights a week to equal out to 25 hours a week. That would be where that faulty math doesn't work well. So you just need to really be mindful of that. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody. And there certainly are sites out there. They're not as prevalent. And I really don't want anybody to get, to come to that point at the end where suddenly it's a crisis when really there needs to be planning ahead of time. And I know I mentioned this a little bit last summer too, but just something to just really be thinking about. So obviously you're going to use your personal, all of your personal consults, personal recommendations. The other thing that I would suggest you do is just really kind of start to do searches, internet searches, local websites, human service organizations. You may find You may find that there are sites that want you to do applications very far in advance, especially if you are in high density areas or areas within which there are a lot of other universities. It's very competitive. And so starting early is the best piece of advice that I can give you because, and actually right now, even for students looking to start internships like next spring, um, because oftentimes early spring, like now, is when people are taking applications for fall and even like next spring's internships. So this is particularly true if you are looking to maybe do something at a hospital or some of the larger sites. So you're just going to want to start to think about that and really be aware of that. If you do in your travels run across somebody that like has an online portal for students to do their own applications, by all means do that and then just alert me. One of the caveats and an important consideration when you're doing your site research is to make sure that whatever site it is that you're looking at, and this is going to be one of your litmus tests for is this a site that you can submit as an option, is does the site require you to do unsupervised counseling outside of the agency? There is a very significant push right now towards integrated home health, where many counselors are going out into people's homes and doing counseling there or out into the communities. It's a wonderful model. It is not a model that we can support for interns, with the exception of if your supervisor of record goes with you to every single one. You are never, ever allowed to be off-site with a client without your supervisor. So that rules out some possible sites unless the site is willing to do that. Now, there are also sites who do some of that but don't do all of that. You're certainly welcome to be at a site that does some of that but not all of that, as long as either you don't have to do it or you or your supervisor goes with you. So I just wanted to kind of stress that, because when I was doing site development for Jasera's group and the group that went before her, I ran into a lot of that. I had to say no to a lot of sites because that was they were like, oh yeah, absolutely, we want people. We've got lots of families waiting. We just nobody to go see them. And I was like, okay, wait, time. What do you mean by that? So those are questions that you will be needing to ask and to find out. Okay, so the way that the fieldwork submission is going to work is US students are actually going to be responsible for identifying sites that are suitable sites. Okay, that means you're going to be doing the initial calling to them to establish a goodness of fit with what we require and whether or not they have placements available when you need to be placed. All right. Your job is to find at least 3 of those and submit them to me at least 5 months before your desired fieldwork start date. Now, I know some of you, this is impossible because we don't have 3 months or 5 months. Okay, that's okay. I recognize this. This policy was written globally. So for those of you starting in the fall, you're fine. For you, Laura, it's as soon as you can. All right. Don't panic. And that's where so we need 3 sites 5 months in advance, 2 more sites 3 months in advance. So a minimum of 5 suitable sites need to be submitted to me, the Director of Applied Professional Practice, a minimum of 3 months before when you want to start fieldwork. If you have questions about when you want to start fieldwork or when you are starting fieldwork, you want to reach out to your academic advisor and get that figured out. And I will talk to you a little bit later on about some kind of things you might want to have conversations with them about. So let me talk about the process a little bit. I know I'm talking a lot, but I need to kind of get through this. So each and every one of you at this point in time has been invited to join a box clinical file. If you have not accepted that invitation, it is in your email somewhere, and you need to go through your email and you need to find it and you need to accept it. Your box clinical file is going to contain 2 files that are already set up for you. That is going to be where currently all of your site development and all of your fieldwork application documents are housed. Okay. It also is going to be where once you get into fieldwork, your portfolio is going to be housed. There's already a room in your house that is labeled as portfolios. Don't panic. There's nothing that you need to do with it now. Sarah can speak to that a little bit later, but that's a file for a different day. So you need to go in to your email and find that invitation from, it's probably from Box. You might look in Clutter, you might look in Junk. It was sent. It would have been an invitation coming probably either from me, from Box, or from Mallory Hardesty, who is my currently my Fieldwork and Residency GA, inviting you to be a collaborator in a folder. You need to say yes. You'll be getting another one of those invitations in just a little while which is for the Fieldwork Master Documents folder, which is where there's going to be one master document of all of the things that you need. I haven't put those in your house yet because I'm still developing them, and they will be in there by the end of the week. So the pieces that you're going to need to save are the Fieldwork site development spreadsheet, which is found in there. And that is going to be where you're going to fill out a bunch of information on all of your potential sites. For those of you who did the SurveyMonkey, Mallory was kind enough to go into the SurveyMonkey. She's already taken and made a list for you, which now lives in your box. So really all you have to do is take that information and put it into the other one, and then you need to start making those contacts. This is where it's different from what I told you before. So you are actually the one going to be doing that initiating phone call. And I said that you'd probably be doing a little bit of that when we talked last summer. So we do now have some scripts made for that, because you're also going to be finding out just a little bit more information that you're going to then collect on that spreadsheet that's going to live in the box in your house, your clinical file. And you are going to collect the following information about the site to determine if the site is suitable before you actually pass it on to me to contact. Okay. So I'm not out of this process. I'm just out of the initial phase of the process. All right. So the first thing obviously you need to determine is if the site accepts master's level clinical mental health counseling interns. If they don't, which some sites don't, they only take PsyDs, or they don't, I'm sorry, we don't have anybody to supervise right now, or whatever. So some do, some don't. Is a placement available when you seek to begin fieldwork? All right. So, and even if the answer to that is no, I'm gonna suggest that you continue through this process, because there may be the opportunity, if you find a site that might be available now, but maybe won't be available for your entire time, or it might be a really good site that maybe another one of your colleagues might be able to use. So keep asking questions if they're not available exactly when you are, but that might not be a site that you wind up at, but to just finish asking the rest of the questions. So who's the internship coordinator or the training director, and what is his or her contact information? Sometimes they will ship you to somebody in HR. Sometimes they will actually give you to a person. Get that information, get their contact information. By contact information, we need email, preferably an email, definitely a phone number. And try to get a direct line if you possibly can, or an extension. Generally, the more specific that we can get, the better. Again, you're going to want to find out, does the site require home visits? And then what are the hours of operation? And the idea behind asking that question is to determine how that's going to work with your life. Because if let's just say they only operate, let's say maybe they only operate from 3 till 10 p.m. 4 days a week, and that happens to be your working hours. Well, unless you're going to decide on a workaround, that might not be a good fit for you. So suitable sites meet the requirements as listed. Obviously, they need to accept interns. They need to have a placement available when you want to begin. This is a suitable site for you, obviously. They've got a specific person who can discuss internship options, and you get their contact information. They do not require the interns to complete any offsite work, including home visits, during which the site supervisor is not present. And they have hours of operation that are compatible with your availability. Okay. So let's just say you get somebody and you talk to them, and the answer to all of those questions is yes. You are excited, it's glorious, and that is an awesome thing. So then you get to officially submit that site to me. Now, what I'm going to, and this is all of this information obviously is going to be in this. It's also in one document that will be posted in that master file. And I was going to send it out to everybody today, but I just decided that I was going to do this first. So all of this information is very clearly laid out step by step in a document that you will have in your possession by the end of the week. Okay. So when you're taking notes on your spreadsheet or whatnot, once you find a site that is suitable, you need to do a couple of things. You need to make sure that all of that information is in your spreadsheet in the box file. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with cloud storage, but this is a cloud storage. Box is cloud storage. So what I need you to not do is overwrite documents that are already there. So for example, if you are taking hard copy notes or you're taking notes on the spreadsheet on your own computer, you saved it onto your own computer, then you go to upload it again. Don't replace the one that's there, because it's possible if you've already submitted sites to me that I'm taking notes in there as well. So you're going to want to save it as a different version and upload it. My suggestion is not to re-upload anything, but rather to do editing in there in Excel online. So you'll go in there, and I'll probably actually make like a little video that demonstrates this. Maybe I'll have just Sarah make a little video that demonstrates this, but I'll show you how to do that when the time comes. But you go in, it's just, do you want to edit? Yes. Edit in line, and then you just go in and you make the changes and it automatically saves it. Most of you have probably used Google Docs. It's almost identical to the Google Doc kind of thing once you get a Google Doc set up so that it's editable. Okay, so let's say you've got the site, you determined that this is a place that you want me to pursue for you as a placement option, then you're going to officially submit it to me. To submit it to me, you email me and tell me, hey, Dr. Soli, I've got a site. It's the Shinoda Bolin Counseling in Toledo, and I've put it in my spreadsheet. And I will say, fantastic. I will let you know when I know anything else. And you will make sure that their line in the Shinoda Bolin Counseling in Toledo is all filled out in your Excel sheet, and I will go in and look at it and start to make contact on my end. And then my part will start in terms of starting to question them more deeply about what their operations are, making sure that there are appropriate supervision there for you, and all of those kind of things, making sure that they can really provide the kind of supports that we require, that they have supervisors with the right kind of training, that they have supervisors who are willing to give you an hour a week of supervision, things like that. So I do that process, and I take notes in there so that you're aware of what I'm doing as you are going along. And then hopefully we quickly come to having a site that's approved. Now, once you submit one site, you don't stop. You keep developing sites, because it may or may not work out the first one or two or three sites that that are called. I have had instances where the very first site worked out, and I had a student placed literally within a week. I also have had students where I was turned down, and I kid you not, no less than 30 times for one student for a placement. And she was 6 weeks into her practicum before I finally completely had a site nailed down for her. It was not pleasant. We are no longer able to go 6 weeks into practicum, but know that, I mean, I am very persistent, but I need your help with that. So you may think that this is a done deal. Don't stop looking. Keep developing, keep putting things in there. Okay. And when you put them in there, there's actually a place in the spreadsheet where you're going to be able to prioritize them. So let's just say you get a site. Well, probably that one's going to start out as priority number one. But let's say the next day you get a site and and it's like the perfect site. Switch your priorities. Like that, just because I've started to contact one doesn't mean that I can't contact another. Now, obviously, once I get you a site, I'm not going to keep like calling the site. So there will come a time when I say, okay, we're good, we're done. All right. Please feel free to check in with me weekly for progress updates. I am going to try actually to send out a weekly progress update to all of the students who are in the fieldwork development process once things get a little bit clearer for me. And so that's helpful. At some point in this process, you may be asked to interview with them. I may need more information from you. So I'm going to need, once you start to submit sites, I'm going to need you to be really diligent about looking at your email every single day, work day. I try extremely hard to practice self-care and not work weekends. So you cannot expect to see things from me over the weekend unless it's on like a Sunday night. And I don't expect you to get back to me on a weekend if I email you on a Friday. So during the week, though, we do look for like to try to have a 24-hour turnaround. One of the things that I have found consistently with site supervisors, if I can get them rolling, that's when things can really click. So I need your help to continue to help me with that. Let's see what else. I think that's about it for that. So I'm going to take a pause now and ask you what questions you have at this point, and then I'm going to go on to talk just a little bit more about the fieldwork application process itself, but I'm going to stop now and let you ask questions or thoughts, concerns, anything that I can do. I realize a lot of this feels really theoretical right now, and it would probably be more helpful if when I'm able to like make a video to walk you through it, but fire away.
Dr. Soli, this is Sarah. Can you hear me?
I can, Sarah.
Okay. I just wanted to insert a couple of things if I could. With regards to preparing for the field work process, if you're currently not in the state that you plan to practice in, because I had a very interesting situation, and I don't want anybody to go through what I went through, but if you're in a situation where you're currently not in the state that you desire to practice, and my recommendation is that you try to move ASAP. The other thing is, for those who can afford it, to double up on your classes, because doing field work and having a practicum class on top of another class, on top of your own work schedule, on top of life, is a tremendous amount of transition and stress. So you want to be very strategic about managing your stress now, planning ahead. Because of my line of work, it was kind of hard for me to plan ahead. But if you can, by all means, do it now. Don't wait, because the time will be here before you know it. The other thing is, as far as the sites, I put together several different types of cover letters, and my recommendation is that you create cover letters, and that you even also, it was an option to do this, but I elected to do it because I feel like it kind of separated me from other people. So I did a blue jeans video, kind of really saying who I was and why I would be a good fit for that particular site, and just to integrate into the field in general. because it is competitive. The site that I'm actually at now, initially, they were looking to bring on 2 interns. And in the middle of my process, they told me that it was only going to be one. And initially, I was like, oh my God, heart sunk because I really wanted to be at this site. But it was really competitive. And I ended up interviewing, but I was in Missouri at the time and ended up traveling to Georgia for the interview. That's how determined I was. I ended up booking it. I ended up actually booking it. You could tell I'm a performer. Oh my God, booking it. But I ended up getting the internship, but my determination and persistence. And so you have to really, really, this is a whole level, and not only be thinking, but be prepared to make action now. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thanks. No, thank you, Jasara. And that actually, I actually put in a blurb at this was one of the last things that I was going to say, but you brought it up, Jasara, so I'll bring it up now. I know this last term, we had sent out the word for students who were interested in doubling up on classes, this last term, spring 1, 2017, to reach out to us if you wanted to do that. That option is born directly out of just Sarah and the first group who went through practicum and internships feedback, that it's very, very hard, because if you do not double up on classes before your practicum and your internship, you are doubling up on classes for all but one term of that, to get the requirements in. So we're actually looking at trying to start doing this for students earlier, even earlier on in their process, than you are. We are not allowing students to do that for certain classes because there are certain classes that really just are too much of a load. For example, we're not doing that with the residency courses. We're not doing that with like the 530 class. But there are courses that we are doing that with, and that is also based on your academic performance as a student. We reserve the right to not do that early on, which is sort of a interesting debate since we require you to do it later on, but that's neither here nor there, nor for me to decide. But the other option for you, just so that you all do know, I know that each of you came into this program thinking that this was a 3-year program and that you would be done in 3 years. I have talked to many of my advisees or my informal advisees who have decided they're going to add 3 more months to their program and slow it down a term so that they can take at least 2 of the classes that they would normally double up on alone, or double up on those classes for those 2 terms. So I also want you to know that that is not off the table. If that is something that you want to do, by all means, reach out to your advisors, your faculty advisors, and talk with them about it. Because, like just Sarah said, it is very intense to try to do it, particularly once you get into internship, when you are looking at doing, between 18 and 25 hours at your site a week, depending on what they require. So, all right, I'm now going to be quiet once again and ask for questions.
This is
I have a question.
Jane here. Oh,
Hi, Jane.
hi. How are you?
Great.
Good. I do definitely want to add to that. I'm actually doubling up right now, as well, because I was in a situation where I had to move, like just Sarah, and I'm doubling up with CM 530 and CM 720. One thing that I definitely also want to mention to that is that it is incredibly time consuming. So I would schedule your life accordingly. And also, financially does not cover that second class. So that is something that a lot of peers are not aware of.
Correct. Thank you, Jen. Yep.
Yeah. So
I didn't even realize that.
yeah.
Ouch.
So you have to have that cash on hand. They do have payment plans, but they only split it up between 2 payments.
Yes.
If you get a stipend, it does fall into that. For instance, most graduate students at the Chicago School through the clinical mental health counseling online program have a full financial aid plan if they're funding it themselves. So then they usually get around like a $1,500 stipend every term. And that stipend goes towards that second course, but you still end up owing about $1,800.
Yeah.
So it's a chunk of
Yeah,
cash.
absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You can also take out. I had to take out. Well, I did two things. I ended up applying for a fellowship that I got, and then I also took out the graduate student plus loan.
That's really smart. I wish I did that.
So just so you all
With
know.
the, sorry, with the financial aid aspect is because it's a 1.5 credits per term, I guess. Does that
Yes.
count as full time or part time when
Well,
it comes
not
to
the
financial aid?
practicum. The practicum is charged 3 credits up front. It's not spread out like the it's you're charged the one time, like it's spring session 1. We're in spring session 1, right? So all 3 credit hours was actually charged to your account. This is one of the reasons why, in addition to what Jane is saying, this is another reason why you have to pay, why financial aid doesn't cover it, because of the way that they disperse your money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not
Okay.
it's
So
not
what
1.5
I'm asking
credits. It's
is,
actually, go ahead.
if we take the practicum by itself without doubling up, would financial aid have covered it then?
No, it still won't be
Oh,
covered
it's still
because you're talking about, yeah, because this has to do with how financial aid disperses money. That's what it has to do with. Not that
And
you
I'm
don't.
actually going to ask, and I'm sorry, this isn't an important conversation, but I'm actually going to suggest if you have financial aid questions
Yeah.
to probably contact
Yeah.
financial aid. What I'm hearing is make sure you do it now
Yeah.
rather
Sorry,
than waiting.
I didn't mean to take off base. I just
No, 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 it's okay. It's totally
important.
fine. It's just I know like obviously finances are
Yes, and they're
important
also
and like no, it's a very important topic. Please don't hear that I'm trying to like just completely shut it down. But I also know like everybody's financial aid package is different,
totally.
and I don't have all the answers. I don't have many of the answers for financial aid. I just sort of try to let financial aid do that bit. So, but definitely no, thank you for honestly, thank you so much for contributing that. And it because I think that the awareness really does need to be there that reaching out to financial aid before you get to the fieldwork part of your program to kind of work out what that's going to look like for you, what you're going to need to do, and what the ramifications of any of the options are for you is important.
And a quick question related to that, not to
Hmm.
the financial aid part, but what I was kind of wrapping around to was to then plan for our life circumstances with internship. How many hours will we be planning to schedule a week for
Hmm.
first practicum and then internship?
Okay, so for practicum requires you to complete 100 hours over the 14-week term. So you can figure probably no more than 10 hours a week. The caveat to that is there are sites that will not accept you unless from the beginning you are willing to commit a given number of hours a week to them, which means in practicum you might be, I can think of at least 3 of my 10 current internship 1 students who this applied to. They had to agree as from right out of the gate that they would do 20 hours a week at the site. Now, they can't count any of those practicum hours officially towards internship. But more importantly, like they had to be flexible enough to know that for practicum, they were still going to be putting in those 20 hours. The way that we configure it really only comes down to between 8 and 10. Now, once you get into internship, you have to complete 300 hours in approximately 14 weeks. It's 14 to 15 weeks because there's always a break week during which you can still collect hours. Okay. So that equals out to approximately 18 to 22 hours a week. All right. You always want to plan for some contingencies, and this is particularly true for any of you who are either going and doing hours over summer or over the holidays. That is when clients don't come to sessions. they just no show. So when you think you're going to have, oh, I'm good, like everything's going to be grand, I'm going to easily get like all of my hours, and suddenly you've got clients dropping off the face of the planet. So you need to build in some contingencies there. But those are the overall hours. And actually, those hours are actually in this PowerPoint, Jane, which I will post. I just didn't go into it deeply here.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.
So can I start my internship or my practicum actually early? So this summer?
No.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to know.
No, you have the way that you have to complete 530, which is the class that you will be taking in summer 1. In the past, we have offered, our first cohort took residency 2 and practicum at the same time, which I would not recommend for anybody ever to do again. And they did it for our purposes, not for their own. You'll be able to by summer you'll be starting in August. So technically that's still summer, but it's not actually summer term. But you'll take 530 in summer 1, 543 in summer 2, and then you'll start fieldwork in fall 1.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And we only start fieldwork classes every other term as well. I think that's important for you to know, because like every other class here at TCS, we don't offer the classes. We only offer the classes that we need. And so the way that our fieldwork starts work, it goes by the cohort model. So like Zinab, your cohort will be starting basically exactly 2 years after you started the program. But we only take students 3 times a year. So we only start fieldwork 3 times a year.
Okay.
Other questions? Thoughts?
Hey, Dr. Soli, this is Jean.
Hi, Jean.
I'm a little sick, so
I'm sorry.
I'm thinking about moving to a different state. So I was
Mhm.
wondering what kind of assistance we can get on that. Maybe you could provide leads for a possible, practicum or internship site with Aggie.
Not really. It's going to be the same process that you would use for, kind of in your own state. I mean, I can certainly offer you, if we are working actively on trying to put together like a spreadsheet of possible sites, and so we're working on that. Obviously, it's a slow build because it's just kind of based on what we all know, the sites that we've reached out to. But certainly your peers are also good resources for that. And if you are thinking about moving, like I would say, get in touch with that state organization. Certainly we'll do anything that we can to help you, but just know that like there are certain states that I could be really helpful in, and then there are certain ones that I just don't know. I don't know anything. Where are you considering moving to?
Well, I'm thinking about on the south,
Okay.
mainly on the south.
Come to Georgia.
That
We've
would be
got sites
great,
in
right?
Georgia. I've got sites in Georgia. Got sites in Florida, which is fine. The thing you will want to just take a look at before you make that leap, Jean, is to consult with probably your advisor, but maybe even like loop back into admissions. There are some states that do not accept us right now as for licensure. So you are going to want to make sure that you don't move to one of those states. I cannot tell you off the top of my head what they are at the moment, except I know California is one of them.
Illinois.
Illinois, because I want to say Louisiana, because we have a do not compete with sister schools there.
Massachusetts, New Hampshire.
Maybe, yeah. So before you jump on the plane or get in the car, just loop back to us, and I can, like I said, your advisor should be able to help you. We've got a spreadsheet that says which ones we are, which ones we're not. If they can't figure it out, shoot me an email. I'll let you know, Jean. Other
Thank you.
questions? Of course. Other questions? Concerns? Was this helpful?
Mm, I had a question.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to know, like, the difference between the practicum and internship deadlines.
The deadline is the same because practicum is part of fieldwork. So fieldwork is sort of, you can think of fieldwork is sort of the umbrella that encompasses practicum, which is the first part, and the internships, which are the next two parts. Okay. So the deadlines are for basically for you to start practicum, because the practicum, you still have to be in an approved site under an approved supervisor doing all of the same things. There's still the same application process for you. There's still the same application process for the sites. Which also leads me to the next questions. I mean, some students do choose to do field work, practicum at one place, internship at someplace else. Most sites want you for at least practicum and part of your internship, if not most of it, simply because it's an investment for places to train an intern. While they get a lot out of it, they also do put a lot into it, and particularly during practicum, when your commitment is often to only be there for 10 hours a week, they don't there's sort of a perception that there's not a lot of, I guess, bang for their buck in terms of what they're putting in terms of training for what they're actually going to get out in terms of hours. So, you know, I would encourage all of you to, as you're thinking about developing these sites, like going, well, is this a place that I would want to stay for the whole time? And there are two camps. There's a really good reason to stay at one place the whole time, because you really do get a very deep and thorough understanding of what it's like to be in a place for a year and like go through like the process with clients of like long term. And there's also benefits to splitting up your time and doing part of your placement in one place and part of your placement in another. I right now even have some students who are doing two placements at the same time. One person is getting all of their group hours at one site, because doing group hours is one of the requirements sometime during your field work, but their predominant site didn't do hours. They didn't do groups, and so they had to get those hours somewhere else, which is fine. Again, it's just those sites need to be developed. They need to be approved. It's that whole process that needs to be gone through. But those are conversations that that you kind of need to think about. I'm going to be really honest. A lot of times people just this sounds terrible, but people just kind of default to what they can get. And I'm trying really hard to like get this process moved far enough out in advance so people have a little bit more feeling of being able, like they have a little bit more I guess more choice in the matter, or more power in the matter. It just, that's sort of how it's has fallen, because the development process takes just a lot more time than you might think. That probably over answered your question, but
Thank you.
of course.
Dr. Soli?
Yes, ma'am.
It's Eve.
Hi, Eve.
Hey, if I understood you correctly, are you saying that we should start now with the fieldwork process? Letting these people know that I'm here, that I'm going to be looking at in this year or this time period,
Well,
or is that something that is still down the road for me?
Eve, remind me when you and I decided that you were going to start field work.
It. Ooh, I'm not sure.
Me either. That's why I asked.
Okay.
You're going to want to start working on the sites I'm advising students to start a year in advance. I
A year?
believe that we had decided that you were going to start maybe in summer of 18.
Mm-hmm.
So like this summer, you're going to want to start doing site outreach, trying to
Okay.
find sites, starting to put them in the spreadsheet, starting to make those initial phone calls.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Of course. Others.
Dr. Soli, it's Jean again.
Hello.
If I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time talking.
I'm
My
sorry.
throat hurts. It's this cold here, 0 degrees, and our highs are 3. So yeah.
I can see why you
Anyway,
want to move.
yeah. So let's say I found a job where I want to be in the state, and
Mhm,
they have approved supervisors over there.
mhm,
How would that work
mhm.
if I
Great
want to do my
question.
practicum there?
Sure. And this is all actually, a lot of these questions are addressed in the Fieldwork Manual, which is, I actually put up here that there's a new version of the Fieldwork Manual that's going to be released. It's going to be the March 2017 version, and that will also be in that box file. It'll also probably well, no, I'm keeping one version of everything in the box file because otherwise too many versions get passed around. So what you cannot use your job as your internship. So if you're working and I'm just going to use an example. You get hired at the Gene Shinoda Institute and you are working there with their inpatient women's group and you're being supervised by a clinical mental health counselor. And that's your job and that's what you get hired to do. You cannot count any of that work, nor can you be supervised by that supervisor for any portion of your internship. Now, what you can do is you could go work in the women's outpatient under another supervisor and count all of those hours. Now, if your work decided, well, we're gonna cut your hours over here, but we're gonna pay you over here, that's up to them. So you can do a paid internship. It just cannot be your technical job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. But what you can't do is be supervised by the same person, because that would be a conflict of interest. And you cannot be working with the same population. So it has to be a structurally different population from which you work for your job. And that's true whether or not it's paid. So like I have one student right now who is doing her internship at the place of her employment. In her employment, she works with one supervisor and she does a particular, she case managed a certain population within the organization. For her field work, she's under a completely different supervisor providing different services to a different population.
Okay, I got it. That's
Great.
good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Dr. Sully, I have a question.
Yeah.
I have within Indiana, I have to do the advanced internship, the
Yes,
extra
ma'am.
7 internship. So do I need to look for a few more extra places to do that, or can I just stick with?
No, you could just stick with what you have because generally what happens is you're just those extra hours are an extra term. That's how that works. So you automatically have an extra term added on to your coursework here because you will have another and hold on to your socks. So the way our advanced internship works is you have to complete those 300 hours in 7 weeks.
Okay.
At the end of your internship 1 or at the end of your internship 2. Now, you and I and anybody else who this would apply to will talk in code with your supervisor about how to perhaps bank some hours for that. Banking hours is technically not, we don't really do that, but sometimes there are ways to, there's ways to do it where you'll just, I mean, you would kind of work extra hours, evenings or things like that. So that's a conversation that we can have later on down the line, offline.
Well, I'm hoping that it won't be an issue to find a site in Indiana just because of the simple fact that there's such a long waiting list to get in to see a therapist around here. I mean, the waiting list is anywhere between 3 to 6 months long to even get in to see somebody. So I'm really hoping that I can find a site that I can stick with the whole time.
I hope so too. What I would suggest is start early, because it's fascinating. Sometimes the places that have the longest wait times don't have supervisors who are willing to take on an intern because they're too busy. It's like, don't you realize you're getting like free help? Like you just bought yourself 6 more clients. But sometimes that there's contingencies, because if they are like what is it, 403Bs or whatever, they can only charge for this or that, and there's a lot of internal structuring that can get iffy. But yeah, start now.
Okay.
Find out. Yeah, for anybody who is starting internship in the fall, as soon as you have access to all of these materials, which I promise you, like right now, you should all have access to your clinical file inbox if you go into your email. There's not much in there that you can do anything with, but at least you can find it. By the end of the week, you'll have access to the master documents and you'll be able to actually start this process. So I'm going to say start, start. You don't have to, obviously you have other things that you need to do, but don't put it off. Don't be like, oh, I'll get to it in May. Well, folks, May is too late. The way that I do things too, I mean, there are contingencies. Like if you don't have sites to me when I need you to have them, and obviously the year rule and the 5-month rule, we're being a little bit lax on that, but like if I don't have sites from you when I need sites and I'm at your name, I skip your name and I don't come back to your name until later, which means you may not get a placement. So please help me help you by getting things done expediently and giving me sites, getting me the the possibilities to get in touch with. I do just really briefly want to talk about the fieldwork application process itself, because that is something that somebody brought up right at the beginning of the call. So as well as the site development process, there's also a fieldwork development or a fieldwork application that you will be filling out. That is also going to be available to you in that box master file. Again, this is all going to be spelled out in one document for you. It's going to show you exactly what to do. Within that is a really good place to do exactly what Jasira was telling you about, is like to do like a Blue Jeans recording of an introduction of yourself. Things that you can do to set yourself apart, to really like spark people's like, oh wow, that was really creative. Or, instead of just sort of the like basic like, okay, well, here's my resume and I want to be a counselor and I love helping people. Like do like anything you can do to kind of set yourself a little bit apart is always a good idea. But the application and the application process are pieces that will all need to be done within before I start calling your sites. I need the application done, because the application includes a couple of important pieces, which, sorry, I'm having trouble with my slides here. Which includes, within there, we've got your proof of liability coverage is in there. I'm going to have a copy of your resume, because a lot of times when I get a hold of a site, they will say, well, Jean sounds great. Can I see a resume? And I need to be able to go into your file and pull your resume as soon as I hang up the phone, because I'm going to say to them, of course, I will send that to you right now. You can be expecting my email within the next 10 minutes. So I need all of those pieces to be able to send. The video or the written fieldwork introduction. There's also a self-assessment in there. It's a fairly extensive self-assessment. We really want you to, as you know, we like self-reflection here. And it also helps, I think, supervisors get their eyes on you, because your potential site supervisors will have access to this application once you finish it, if they want to see it. There's a conversation in there about desired supervisor qualities, really starting you to think about, like, what do I need in a supervisor? What do I want in a supervisor? And then we have you sketch out sort of your hours availability. So you're really starting to get very clear ahead of this time about what you're able to do. So you're going to fill all of that out. You're also going to upload all of that information into your student document file within your box file. That's going to be there. Once it's there, you're going to let me know it's there. I'm going to go review it, make any notes on it, and then you'll be good to go. It's not hard. It's just another process. I know some of you actually got a request to do this in a different way. So I'll just throw out that, like, don't even think about that. This is our new process, and maybe usurped within the next 3 or 4 months by a different process, as I caveated at the beginning. Okay, that was the last of that little bit. Any other questions? We are actually 3 minutes over time. I don't want to keep you, but if there are other questions, I'm certainly happy to take them.
Dr. Soli, I have a quick question. I know that just moving to South Carolina and talking to a couple of the professionals in the area, they said that practicum is 150 hours for South Carolina, but not for CACREP accredited universities. So should I assume the worst and just get my 150 hours? I know, like, okay, yes.
The yes, Jane.
Okay. Okay.
If that's what they're saying, then yes, that is absolutely what you should do. And part of what you need to do for fieldwork is to re-review your licensure laws and make sure that there aren't any little weirdnesses like that that are different. The thing I would probe, and you might even call the board and find this out, is sometimes it's a terminology issue.
Okay.
Some states call the entirety of fieldwork practicum.
Oh,
There are states that only require like 200 hours of practicum for you to get licensed.
I see.
Sadly, South Carolina might be one of those. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can say that. I'm still legally a South Carolinian. So
Yeah. That's an odd state.
it is a little bit odd. But like I said, some states don't say practicum and internship. They just call the number of hours that you need practicum.
I
So
see. Okay.
could be a terminology thing, could be you need 150 hours. Yeah, and if you need, like, these are important things to know. And actually, I'm going to make a note of that, because one of the really cool things, I just have to like pump up this this thing we're hoping to do. It's called Clinical Training Manager. One of the most awesome things about this is they have a standard like CACREP time log, but they also have a time log that they actually detail it to the different states. So for example, if we ever were to get California accredited, California on your tracking sheets makes you track diversity hours. So clients who you work with who are different diversities than you are. So like within this system, there's actually built within the California. So if you're California, you're paired with that time log, and it automatically tells you to do that. So like with South Carolina, Jane, if you can follow up with me and tell me what you find out, like if you really do need 150 practicum hours, we can make sure that for you, we get you paired up with the South Carolina one. And if they don't have a South Carolina one, we can tell them to create it.
Cool. Okay, I will do that.
So let me know, follow up. And like if any of you out there find like nuances or things within your states that are requirements that are a little bit different, or just things that you need to track that wouldn't necessarily be on sort of a standard time log, if you can please let me know as soon as you know that, I can be working with this new management company that we're going to be using to make sure that we are creating templates for you to be able to track that. And I see, and I'm so sorry, I wasn't in the chat. So I'm not sure. Is there any are there anything in here that I didn't answer? Are there any other questions I can answer? Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I wasn't sure. You never know when you have these things of who's going to show up. So thank you again very much for coming. I hope it has been helpful, and I very much appreciate your attendance. If there's any other questions that I can answer for you, you know how to get a hold of me, and I will be getting all of that information out to you in the very near future. Anything else?
Nope.
All right.
No.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Soli.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Soli.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
You too.
Have a
Bye.
good night.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night now.